I rebuilt my WordPress website with Wix Studio. I've been a WordPress loyalist for years because of its power and vast plugin ecosystem. However, a few months ago, I started exploring some no-code alternatives and was particularly impressed with Wix Studio. I challenged myself to see if I could replicate my WordPress site in Wix Studio, since my website isn't just a landing page. It has dynamic pages built with advanced custom fields and interactive forms, the type of functionality that isn't possible with the average drag-and-drop website builder. If you've never heard of Wix Studio before, it's a web creation platform for agencies and freelancers. This isn't the standard version of Wix. It's a supercharged platform with the advanced features agencies need to build powerful, capable websites for their customers. Wix Studio was kind enough to sponsor this video, so let's jump into the site build and see what it can do. I started by creating a blank site from scratch and establishing my global styling. I imported my brand colors since these would be used repeatedly across my site. I then imported my fonts, and although Wix Studio doesn't have Google Fonts built into its library, you can upload custom fonts with a few clicks. Once my styling was set up, I moved on to the header and footer. Blank sites come with placeholders for the header and footer, so it was relatively easy to add my logo and change the colors. The footer of my site has a more complex layout with several columns and rows. I'll talk more about creating layouts when I design the page body, but I was able to replicate my footer design, which includes a subscribe form for my newsletter. While WordPress requires third-party plugins to build forms, Wix Studio has forms built in. I got to work building my form, and that's when I learned that Wix Studio handles form styling in a unique way. Initially, I was confused that I couldn't modify the colors and fonts in the form designer, but then I learned that you can modify the design once you add the form to the page. In other words, the form's layout and fields are disconnected from the styling. This allows you to use the same form in multiple places with different styling. If you want to reuse the styling, you can simply duplicate that specific form block. Forms can even include conditional logic, which you'd typically have to use a paid plugin to achieve in WordPress. To add subscribers to an email list, you can either use Zapier or send a webhook. After customizing the header and footer, I moved on to the homepage. Before adding content to the page, I took a few minutes to get familiar with the layout options in Wix Studio. Now, there are pre-made sections that will heavily speed up the design process, but since I'm rebuilding my existing site for this challenge, I needed to create layouts from scratch. Wix Studio has a few layout options to choose from, but the most common option will be section grids. This is what I used on my website, and it's similar to the standard layout tools you'll find in WordPress. There's also a CSS grid and flexboxes for more advanced users, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. So I created my section grids and got to work duplicating my page design in Wix Studio. Since I already established my global branding, it was a breeze to make elements the right color and type headings in the correct font. I had to get creative with the hero section to make this image on the right span the entire height of the section, but using the collage layout option, I was able to create a cell that was the full height of the section to accomplish this. For the next section, I needed to create these boxes with a subtle drop shadow and some padding in between. I was able to add 20 pixel gaps to my entire section, then it was just a matter of adding a corner radius and drop shadows to my cells. I got through the homepage design pretty quickly, but then I wanted to move on to the more involved section of my website, the product recommendations. See, one thing that was important to me when I designed my current website was to have product recommendation pages for different categories. For example, I have a page featuring my favorite password managers for each use case. I accomplished this in WordPress with advanced custom fields and the Elementor Loop Grid Builder, both of which are third-party plugins. However, in Wix Studio, I accomplished the same thing natively with a CMS collection. The CMS feature of Wix Studio works similarly to ACF, meaning I was able to create a collection for product reviews and customize the fields. I copied my setup and migrated my data, then I was able to create dynamic pages linked to my CMS collection. I filtered the dataset to only show entries including the password manager tag. Then I could duplicate this page and swap out the category tag for each. I was able to customize the item element to my liking, and since it's in a repeater, all the other elements dynamically update to match the same style. This is the same type of setup I built with ACF and the Elementor Loop Grid Builder, and I was impressed that I could do this all natively with Wix Studio. Now, I didn't rebuild my entire website with Wix Studio since adding additional pages would just be more of the same, and I've already touched on customizing the header and footer, building the page body, building forms, forms, and building dynamic pages. However, one thing you'll need to be intentional about in Wix Studio is optimizing pages for mobile. You can create completely different layouts for each screen size, but if you don't take the time to optimize each page, it's not going to look right on mobile. Thankfully, Wix Studio has a responsive AI feature that can optimize the layouts of sections for mobile with a single click. It gives you a starting point and you can further customize the design from there. Still, you will have to do a bit of work to optimize your website for mobile, and that would be my main feedback on how Wix Studio could improve. But if you've ever dealt with various WordPress page builders, you know that optimizing for mobile can be a pain in WordPress too. One thing that's not a pain is hitting that subscribe button. It's free to subscribe and click the bell, and you'll be the first to watch my new videos. So after I finished building out the rest of my pages, my website was almost ready for launch, but there was still one major thing left to do: SEO. Once again, this requires a third-party plugin to accomplish in WordPress, but you can do it all natively in Wix Studio. You can go to each individual page's SEO basics to customize the page title and meta description, and you can fine-tune things even further in the Advanced SEO tab. The social share settings allow you to create an alternate title and description for social media links if desired, and you can also upload a featured image. Wix has an SEO setup checklist for your site's overall SEO, and it ensures that your website is following SEO best practices. It had me add alt text to each of my images, and I was quite impressed that I was able to do this within the wizard without having to manually edit each image on each page. SEO settings for dynamic pages are accessible in a slightly different section of the dashboard, but you can still customize everything, including the meta title and description, social image, and advanced tags. In the end, I was successfully able to replicate my WordPress site using Wix Studio. I was most impressed by the fact that I didn't need any third-party plugins to replicate my setup. Forms with conditional logic, custom fields in the form of CMS collections, and SEO can all be done natively in Wix Studio, something that would require 3 or more plugins in WordPress. Another unique aspect of Wix Studio is the customer support. While the website creation platform is designed to be self-service, you can always ask questions or report bugs to the Wix support team. If you have experience with WordPress, you know that there's no one place to go for support. There might be an issue with your web hosting, your page builder, or WordPress itself, so who do you contact? With Wix Studio, you'll never have that dilemma. I built my website for free with Wix Studio, so if you want to play around with it and see if it might be a fit for you or your agency, I'll have it linked below. Now, if I wanted to publish my site to a custom domain, I would have to upgrade to a paid plan. The basic plan for $19 a month has everything I would need for this particular site. And keep in mind, Wix Studio takes care of the hosting for you, so you don't have to buy any plugins or extensions, and you don't have to buy web hosting. With that being said, $19 a month is more affordable than common managed WordPress hosting, which typically ranges between $25 and $35 a month. So should you use Wix Studio for your customer's next website? Well, I definitely think it's worth a try. It truly feels next generation compared to WordPress, and while it does have some quirks I hope to see ironed out in the coming months and years, it's impressed me enough that I wouldn't hesitate to try it out for future projects. After you build your customer's website, you can take their online presence to the next level with a custom email address. I've got a tutorial showing you how to set up a free custom email that you can check out here.